Stegmeyer was with me in my band from the earlier 70s, mid 70s, until he died in the 90s. Really talented guy, perfect bass player for the songs that we were doing. Pretty much, used my left hand on the piano as the guide for what he was going to play, which was exactly the right thing to play. I never had to tell him what notes to play. He always played exactly the right thing. He worked really, really well with the drummer, Liberty. Just a good guy, and a very sad death in the family for all of us. Mark Rivera joined up with us in, let's see, the early 80s. Rich Canada had gone out on his own. He was working with the Beach Boys and working with other bands. And Mark came along, and now Mark's been with me longer than anyone. He's been with me something like 32, 33 years at this point. Great musician, great sax player, a great stage performer, has great energy. I will always work with Mark, always. Phil Ramone was a key figure in my career. He was a child prodigy, a violinist when he was a young kid. He's from South Africa. And he was an engineer early on in the pop music industry. If you've ever seen the footage of Marilyn Monroe singing Happy Birthday, Mr. President to John F. Kennedy, the engineer who got the live recording of that was Phil Ramone. I mean, this guy goes back into great history. He worked with Sinatra. He worked with Bennett. He worked with Ray Charles. He worked with Quincy Jones. He worked with Paul Simon. He worked with Bob Dylan. He worked with everybody, this guy. And he was a very versatile producer. He understood music because he had been a child prodigy musician. He understood the atmosphere of creating an atmosphere for recording artists. Whenever we would get stuck recording a song, we couldn't figure out the arrangement, we couldn't figure out the rhythm or the instrumentation, Phil would do something to distract us from wanting to leave. He'd go, oh, let's get some Chinese food, or he'd order a pizza, or we'd sit around and start, telling stupid jokes. But he would keep the continuum going, trying to get the creative juices to go, to keep spinning. And he had this genius for it. He knew what musicians needed to make good recordings. And it wasn't about technical so much. We used to record live where there was no, the vocal was live on top of the instrumentation where there was a lot of leakage. We didn't care. He didn't care. It was all about the feel. What feels right? What's going to be the best way that these guys should record this song? And that was his genius. We just lost him 2 years ago, and I still feel that loss greatly. That was a guy who was a very special human being.